Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our Healthy Tuesday segment, and today we have a treat. We have our great speaker in the house today, Miss Dominique Roller from Girls Inc. And so we're going to be focusing on some decision making, some of that healthy relationships type of segment today. So while it's going to be geared towards a younger crowd, I want some of my older adults to really look at some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. And so hopefully this information will help you. So we're going to dive in. Dominique, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role and what you do at Girls Inc.
Yes. So I'm Dominique Roller. A little bit about myself. I am a graduate from the University of Montevallo. Go Falcons. I have been working with youth for about 8 years now, 8 years. And I'm also a mother. I have two little girls, Lilyann and Rose. And I truly just love what I do. Obviously, I'm at Girls Inc. And Girls Inc. is a nonprofit organization here in Central Alabama. And so we work with youth from 6 to 18, and we have like research-based programming within the community and the schools. And we really just focus on the whole girl. And so what we mean by the whole girl is physical, social, emotional, educational health.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So as we're diving into this segment, tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you might have seen in this role working with some of our youth.
Okay, so with my role, I am the Preventing Adolescent Pregnancy Coordinator. And so I go into the schools, community groups, and I talk with students regarding just building self skills, as I like to say. And so when it comes to self skills, just emotional, mental, things of that nature, that way they can avoid situations and relationships that lead to teenage parenthood. And so the biggest challenge I've seen just working in my role has really been a lack of communication skills. I think that's been the biggest one because a lot of our youth are quick to react. and they struggle with just kind of talking things through or expressing themselves in a healthy manner. And that's been a big challenge I've noticed just working with our youth.
So yes, I know we live in because we live in a very what I would call a reactionary society where we're kind of going off of those feelings and then act. And so
Yes.
a lot of times, especially when our young people hit puberty, they're feeling those little butterflies. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy. He
Yes.
really likes me. I like him. And so those one of those feelings and then reaction. And so with some of our young people, what have you seen as far as them identifying what is a healthy relationship? What does that look like? I mean, whether it's a intimate relationship, friendship, let's talk about all of the above. What does a healthy relationship look like?
Yes. And so to piggyback off of what you said, where, they're going through their puberty, they're experiencing a lot of things emotionally. With that comes a lack of self-awareness and just knowing who they are aside from society. And so when we go into talking about healthy relationships, I think the biggest thing is to kind of define what a healthy relationship is. And so that consists of, communication, honesty, support, safety in terms of physical and emotional. And, the biggest thing out of all of that would be the mutual aspect of it. In order to have a healthy relationship, those things have to be mutual. And to piggyback off of the self-awareness, in order to have healthy relationships with others, you have to have a healthy relationship with yourself, because you set the tone for what you will allow in your life.
Right. That's really some good key steps. I'm listening to that, and it kind of reminds me of when I was in college, and I took my
Yeah.
first psychology class, and there was something that I got a hold to that never slipped away from me. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And
Yep.
so a lot of what you're saying falls in that limelight. And so, though, of course, you have the essential needs: food, water, warmth, rest, shelter, safety, and security. And then you got intimate relationships and friendships.
Yep.
So, as we are talking about how to identify those things, intimate relationships and friendships is like number 3.
Yes.
Versus, of course, food, water, warmth, and then safety and security. So a lot of times we get things in reverse. We looking at, okay, who can I be friends with? And I don't have any, safety and security, or I don't have any food or warmth. So you can't really get from someone what's missing, because you had the first two, number 1 and number 2 isn't secured. And so I find that so interesting, because now we understand, just in talking through this, maturity levels. You will not be able to make those healthy decisions without first having that real maturity level and kind of sitting down and what's your hierarchy of need in this, in this piece. So I find it fascinating. The other thing, the other question I wanted to ask you was, okay, now this is digging a little bit more on the intimate side. So when we're talking about relationships, young people who are trying to date, what are some of the things that you have seen in young people dating in relationships that don't have that maturity that we're talking about?
Lots of dating violence. A lot of people don't believe that middle schoolers, high schoolers experience that.
Wow.
But based off of my experience in the schools, one of my number 1 questions when I do my anonymous box is, the person I'm dating threatens to hurt me if I leave, or, questions of that nature. And so a lot of parents or community leaders might turn a blind eye to the idea of young people having, dating violence, but it's very real. And with that comes a silence of it all. They don't feel enough safe spaces to communicate what's going on in the relationship. With that also brings the normality of this negative behavior, the control of it all, the belief that if he or she loves me, this is what I've seen at home, this is okay. And so it's really, really important to have these conversations and talk to the youth to explain, these things aren't okay. And that is the biggest thing I've seen when it comes to romantic relationships with our youth.
Wow. So it's really perpetuating the cycle as we're talking about identifying healthy relationship. And it's almost, okay, if the parent in the home hasn't identified what a healthy relationship is, and they have engaged in some form of relationship violence or domestic violence, then that's the only viewpoint that this young person is going to see. And so therefore they're feeling that this is a normal way to date. This is a normal way to have friendships, and it is not. This has become what we like to say, we're in Zoom world, that's our new norm, but we're saying that this is our new norm. But we are entitled to have love, respect, safety, security, all of those things that we're supposed to have. And so I just find that interesting that a young person in middle school and high school, oh my, I don't know what I would do if I had a middle school or a high school. Now my kids are grown, so I'm thinking about how I'm gonna handle my granddaughter when she gets to that age.
And it's hard. It is so hard. And I wish I could just, have a blowhorn and tell everybody it's hard. A
Yes.
lot of people say, well, I remember when I was there and it wasn't this. Well, your normal isn't their normal. We're talking
Right.
about decades of a difference. Social media wasn't as big of a thing for our normal, but it's huge for their normal. And so we have to start thinking about those things.
Right. And social media magnifies things to like a gazillion,
Yes,
you
yes,
have so many different when we talked about role models and influence, when we were coming up, we had music to kind
yep,
of be our outlet. We were listening
right.
to music. Music is still considered an outlet, but we have some other factors like social media,
Mm-hmm.
reality TV
Yeah.
that's not so real,
Mm-hmm.
when you think about these things, and if you're not mature enough to separate, you would really think that these 15 minutes of television that they stretch
Right.
into 30 minutes to an hour is really what goes on on a
Yep.
day-to-day basis in a
Right.
celebrity's life.
Right.
I look at celebrities that when I was growing up that were considered hardcore gangsters, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're prominent businessmen
Yep.
wearing
Yep.
suits and going to CEO meetings and things
Right.
like that, because that's not who they really are.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so we look at these things and they feed into our psyche, and
Right.
we are developing our lives around falsehoods. We're developing
Mm-hmm.
our
Yep.
lives around fake TV,
Yep.
And so as we're talking about this, how does being in that position, how are decisions for our young people who, are in these unhealthy relationships, how does that spiral down in their decision-making process?
So when it comes to unhealthy relationships, that means there's, controlling behavior, belittling, there's a lack of support, a lack of respect.
Mhm.
And so just based on those elements, the decisions typically become negative.
Mm,
The term gaslighting is the
mhm.
one I like to use quite often, to where you're belittled so much that you start to question your own sanity, and you start to question your decisions, if they're right, if they're wrong.
Right.
And so I've noticed, just in my role, I see that a lot.
Mhm,
So the
mhm.
decisions become kind of tainted, faded. They can't find the reality
Mhm,
versus
mhm,
just the truth behind it all.
mhm,
And,
mhm.
and it's very hard to watch and see. It really is.
And a lot of times, because kids are still under the parental guidance of their
Mm-hmm.
parents,
Yeah.
and then they have this set of friends, they really think that, okay, my parents are hard on me, and so some of the same things that I'm hearing from my parents, I'm hearing
Mm-hmm.
from a friend, and they kind of mix the relationship up
Mm-hmm.
because your friends do not have that parental control over you.
Yep.
A lot of times they'll take advantage of the fact that you're obedient,
Mm-hmm.
you follow the rules, and
Yep.
it'll be like a manipulation tool.
Mm-hmm.
Friendships, relationships, and I've seen in my stint of working with young people where you hear terms like, well, if you like me, you'll do this, or if you
Mm-hmm.
love me, you'll do
Which is
this.
sad that that term is still going on
It's
to this
still
day.
And I'm thinking, and I have, really had talks with the kids in our mentoring group and saying, hey, if there is a stipulation on love, then that's not love.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a
Mm-hmm.
stipulation where you're doing if then
Yep.
that's not a
Yep.
true relationship. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
true friendship. That's
Yep.
not that person does not mean the best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times, we're growing up in eras where, even some of my parents don't recognize what an unhealthy relationship is because it's
Yep.
generational.
Yes. Yes.
Terms I remember hearing growing up inadvertently was, well, fine then, I'll fix you,
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
household. And
Yep.
that parent not really realizing what a seed this is planting
Yes. Yes.
inside of
Yes.
that young person. Because if I'm hearing it at home
Yep.
and then I'm hearing it from my friend, well,
Mhm.
I gotta live at home with my mama, so I gotta deal
Mhm.
with you. But
Yeah.
if I hear that from a friend, I'm gonna go that extra mile
Yep.
to make sure
Yep.
I don't lose that relationship.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that's what kind of causes the damage. And that's where
Yep.
you get into what I would like to call people pleasing.
Mhm.
You
I was
fall
just
victim,
about to say that.
falling victim to peer pressure.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, what tips do you have as we get ready to wrap up? What tips do you have to young people, adults? What can you
Yeah.
tell them about really focusing on healthy relationships?
Boundaries. That's my number one. I push establishing boundaries to the top
Mhm.
because that is a big thing for me. When you know what you want, then you can set the tone on what's to be expected. I do an exercise with my students, the want versus won'ts, where I have them list what do you want out of something and what won't you allow. That way they have a clear image of what their boundaries are. And even as adults, we come into, work relationships,
Mhm.
romantic relationships,
Mhm.
and boundaries still need to be in place. You need to know what do you expect from this person versus this person. What won't you allow? And so establishing boundaries is a big deal. But in order to establish boundaries, you have to have an idea of what your values are, who you are. Do you respect yourself? So if you respect yourself, then respect needs to be on the list of things that they need to do, for you. And so
Mhm.
that's a big tip for me, is just establishing those boundaries.
So we got to take a step back in order for you to understand what those boundaries are. You got to understand your own value system.
Yep.
you know um and I've again, it's a maturity thing. You don't know, we're so quick to get up in an uproar about being disrespected. Well, you
Mm-hmm.
disrespected me, da, 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 da. Okay,
Right.
but did you make the terms of the relationship clear? Like
Right.
with me, there's some non-negotiables.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
not finna steal, I'm not finna lie.
Right.
You ain't finna get me caught up, hemmed up in nothing.
Exactly.
Those are some non-negotiables. I remember even when I was a kid, I'm not, don't tell your folks you at my house because I'm not gonna lie
Mm-hmm.
for you. I'm not the
Exactly.
lying
Exactly.
friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Exactly.
that was, if my friends knew anything about me, they knew that was a dope. I'm not gonna lie and I'm not gonna steal. Those were my two
Yep.
non-negotiables.
Right.
And so at least having those top 5 things that you say are non-negotiables, and make
Mm-hmm.
sure everybody in your circle know that you're not gonna do that. But more
Hello.
importantly, you stick to it
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
And that
Make
means
sure
that you
that,
need assertive communication too.
yeah,
That is a big thing. Assertive
assertive.
communication. Yes.
So what's the difference? Because a lot of times, again, we're talking maturity.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand assertive versus aggressive. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so explain that really quick before we get ready to hop off.
Okay, so in communication, you have passive,
Mhm.
assertive, aggressive.
Mhm.
Passive is the form of communication where you pretty much just let anybody say anything to you.
Mhm.
It's kind of like you feel like that sheep, that you can't stand up for yourself.
Mhm.
When it comes to the other spectrum of it, is aggressive. You say what you want, you're not apologetic. I like to say it's a pop off mentality. You're always
Mhm.
on go. And
Mhm.
then you have that middle point
Mhm.
where you can stand your ground, but in a respectful way. You don't feel the need to belittle someone
Mhm.
to state how you feel. And that's a big thing when it comes to stating boundaries, establishing healthy relationships. Have that assertive communication. I know what I want. I'm not going to apologize for what I want.
Mhm.
I won't let you disrespect me, but at the same time, I'm going to offer respect as well.
That is excellent because a lot of times, I see people assert themselves and they've got their chest out and they feeling
Yeah.
good. They got their head lifted up. But then they're looking at the reaction of the other
Yeah.
person. And then
Mhm.
they'll go back and apologize
Yeah.
because, oh, I made you feel bad. But
Yeah.
let's go back to the beginning of the communication pattern.
Mhm.
What got us to this point where you
Right.
had to assert yourself? Now,
Yep.
that person may not like the consequence of that, but
Right.
in turn, that sting that they're feeling from having to adjust on how to treat you will grow into a norm. Oh, well,
Mhm.
that's my friend right there. If
Yep.
I don't check my girlfriend for putting me in the middle of a lie, not aggressively,
Right.
but assertively just saying, hey, that
Mhm.
wasn't cool with you
Yep.
putting me in the middle of that. And I told the truth. You might not
Yep.
like me at the end of this,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't put you in that position.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we've got people that say, well, I'm a ride or die. I'll do
Mhm.
anything. Well,
Yep.
anything will get you hemmed up, locked up, knocked up, and all kinds of other
Hello.
ups.
Hello. And you set the tone. So what you allow once, you're going to allow again and again and again because you are setting the tone for the
Yes.
expectations and boundaries of that relationship.
Yes, so this has been amazing. We're gonna have you back. I'm excited. It's like all types of creative juices are flowing. I'm like, oh, I
Yes.
can't wait till the next conversation. So I just want to thank you so much for being a part of our Healthy Tuesday segment.
Yes.
And if you have any type of guides or anything you want to send us, we would love to put that out as well to just get people
Yes.
to thinking, especially on that communications piece.
Right.
So this is our Healthy Tuesday segment. Until next Tuesday, everybody. Talk to you later.